One Woman. I'm your host, Sharla Brown, and on today's show, I have a very special guest with me, an incredible woman. I have Suzanne Tighe. So thank you for being on the show, Suzanne.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. My pleasure to be here. How exciting.
Yeah, well, Suzanne's a great friend of mine. I've known Suzanne for a number of years now. And but what I find about this show is, as much as I think I know the women that I'm interviewing, once I've done the interview, it's like, wow, I didn't know all this amazing stuff about you, which is exciting. So I'd like to start basically as Suzanne as a little girl, you know?
Suzanne as a little girl.
Yeah.
Okay, so I grew up in Toronto, the youngest of 4 siblings. And we were raised by my dad. So long story short, my dad got custody of 4 kids. Now this is back in the 60s, which was, it's unheard of now, but even in the 60s. And my dad was a tire builder and a shift worker. So you can imagine, we were left unsupervised a lot of times, and a lot of things were left up to our own devices.
Wow.
So we grew up fairly quickly. I think a lot of us were a lot older than our years at a very young age because of that, because of our circumstances.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And grew up in a big city as well. So.
And grew up in a big city, in a little pocket of Toronto called Alderwood, which is, at the time was post-war a real blue-collar neighborhood.
Right.
So Goodyear happened to be one of the big employers there at the time, and my dad was a tire builder. So a lot of my friends' fathers worked at Goodyear as well.
Right. So really, your dad had took on that role of being mom and dad.
He did.
He raised you as a single father. And what was that like as a little girl being raised by a father figure?
Well, like I said, I had 3 older siblings. So I have 2 older brothers and a sister. So my sister really took on the mother role.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, we just all pitched in.
Right.
We just all pitched in. It was, we ran the household as a family unit.
Right.
Yeah.
And growing up, in terms of like education and deciding a career path and all that kind of stuff, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, first of all, when I would visit my mom and my grandmother on weekends. So when I was with my grandmother, I'd always say, I'm going to be a medical missionary, because she was very religious. So I wasn't even sure what a medical missionary was, but I knew if I said it in front of my grandmother, she was very pleased.
Right.
But secretly, I wanted to be a stewardess, or now a flight attendant. That was my biggest thing. I would just, I think my one and only time on a plane when I was a teenager, and I thought, oh, I couldn't imagine. Just imagine being one of those ladies with the perfect makeup and the little scarves around their neck. That's probably where my penchant from scarves comes from to this very day.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So where did your career path wind up leading? Did you go to school after high school?
I didn't go to college until after high school, after I had started working full-time. So I was introduced to a full-time job downtown Toronto. Wow. Heels, hose, dress up every day, get on the subway, and I was working for an investment firm with stockbrokers. So all of a sudden I was introduced to a whole other world. So all of a sudden I was hanging around with other people that were, they were talking mergers, acquisitions at the dinner table, where sometimes we didn't sit down for dinner.
Right.
So it was a whole other world that I was exposed to.
Right.
So from there, there came a time when 2 companies were going to merge, and we had to take a cut in pay at the time. So I started working part-time at night as a telemarketer. And
tough job.
Yeah,
tough job.
It was a tough job. So that company actually asked me to come work full-time for them. And at that time, it was a mom and pop operation, and I learned a lot about business then. That's when they said to me, if you want to go to college, we'll pay for it. Wow. So I did that. So I went to Sheridan College and took business.
Right.
And that was a lot of night courses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were working full-time and going to school.
Yes.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And did you enjoy that kind of line of work? Because that's tough. Like even just customer service in general can be tough. So, I mean, is that something that you stuck with, or how long did you stick with it before things shifted and changed?
I was there for probably about 3 years full-time, and then I met my husband. And then we had bought a franchise. Well, I should say he bought a franchise when I had met him. And he bought it for the territory of Thunder Bay.
Wow.
And the rest is history. So we moved here in 1984.
Wow.
Yeah, and we didn't know a soul.
Okay, I was going to ask you that. Had you ever been to Thunder Bay? Had you even heard of it before?
Well, of course, you know, as everyone jokes, people in Toronto don't know where Thunder Bay was, and I have to say I'm just as guilty. I didn't know where Thunder Bay was as well. I always thought it was, first of all, near the Arctic.
Oh, geez.
So my first trip here was in the summertime, thankfully. We just came up to Thunder Bay to scout it out and see what was available as far as housing and that and so on and so forth. But the actual move date was January. And I thought, I have never experienced cold like that in my life, and growing up in Toronto, I didn't grow up around nature. So I absolutely love Thunder Bay now. It's just my home.
Yes.
I love that I can drive to work. Who else can say when they drive to work they see fox and owls and hawks and deer, you know, I can sit on my deck and watch deer. You don't get that in Toronto.
Right, right, for sure. You get other wildlife.
Yeah. That's right.
So you came here and your husband was starting this franchise. This is a whole new world for you. Not just like a whole new city, community to live in, but a whole new, now taking on entrepreneurship. Did you work alongside your husband in that business?
Yes, I worked. He was out building the business. He was the one out pounding the pavement, and I worked in the basement. I was also known as the cellar dweller.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Glamorous.
So yeah, it was very glamorous. And we did that for probably about 12 years before I actually was able to move upstairs. Wow. And but we had staff and the business, it was a Weedman franchise. Right. And so we started that, well, now over 30 years ago. So we ran that for about 14 years and then someone bought it.
Right.
Yeah.
But massively successful business.
It was.
You know, and what were the things that you learned going from, you know, working as an employee and thinking that that would be your career path and that you'd work for somebody else, into entrepreneurship? Like, as a woman, did you feel like you fit that role, that was a natural fit for you? Or
it sure was. I sure loved it. I loved that. Even though the hours were long and it was a lot of hard work. So being a seasonal business, especially in Thunder Bay, we would always say we packed a year and a half into, you know, 5-6 months. That's what we did. But I love the fact that, you know what, I was able to make my own decisions, and whether they were right or wrong, it didn't matter, but at least we were able to make our own decisions.
Right. And I'm curious as to what it's like to work. I mean, you're married to your spouse.
Yes.
And usually, you know, two people would leave for the day and go in separate directions. What's it like to also work with your spouse, and that you own a business basically together to do everything?
Well, I can't say it was always rainbows and butterflies every day, that's for sure.
Right.
But we worked it out, and he seemed to be out of the house more than I was.
Right.
So that was the difference. That was the difference, yeah.
And having your roles, different roles that you did, and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was sales. I was all behind the scenes.
Right.
Behind the scenes.
Right. And did it just come to a point where that was the decision that you wanted to sell, or you found the right buyer, or it was just that chapter in your life?
Yeah, we found the right buyer. So we thought, okay, now what? Now what do we do? So that took us back down to Southern Ontario after we sold Weedman, and we built a golf course.
Wow.
Now, that wasn't a great experience. Golf is now a dirty 4-letter word in our house, because we just about lost our shirts, but learned a lot from that experience. Right. That's for sure.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to come right back with Suzanne and talk about that experience and the golf course. Welcome back to One Woman. I'm your host, Sharla Brown, and if you're just tuning in, I've been speaking with the wonderful and amazing Suzanne Tighe. And before the break, we were talking about you know, the wonderful success that you had with Weedman. You found the perfect buyer.
Yes.
You're leaving on a high note and realizing, you know, sitting down with your husband, going, "Hey, what's next?" And the opportunity comes to start this golf course.
Yes.
Which sounds like,
doesn't
amazing.
It sounds like it was an amazing opportunity. We thought this should be wonderful. Well, it wasn't. It was a bad business decision, and so needless to say, we don't play golf.
Wow, that bad. Don't even own a club.
Nope.
Wow. But that's
Yeah.
the thing, is that in business and as entrepreneurs, we can have these massive successes, and then we can make these decisions
Yes.
that can just be like, life-changing as well. And everything, I guess, has a reason. And that's the thing, is that there things in there that you learned, or that you can look back and you can say, hey, this wasn't the rosiest of times, but, we learned a lot about ourselves, or learned a lot about business, or things that,
That's right.
what to do going forward and what not to do.
As much as we thought we knew business, this was a whole other business that we weren't familiar with.
Right.
And I should have added that we also had a partner as well, who owned the land and so on. And that was, well, like I'll quote Roz Lockyer from Perot Center. She always says, partnership is the hardest ship to sail.
Right.
So, and it really was. So we learned a big lesson there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be a challenge, for sure.
Yeah.
And so you get up, you dust the scraped knees, all that kind of stuff, because you gotta
Yes.
move forward.
We've got to move forward.
So what was next for?
So the next opportunity, now you have to remember, both my husband and I are a little bit crazy entrepreneurs. So another opportunity came up and we moved out to Calgary. So we were out there for 3 years, and then, excuse me, my husband had the opportunity to retire. And he said, why don't we go back to Thunder Bay? And part of that was, where can we move in Canada that we can actually afford waterfront as well?
Yes.
So at that time, everyone was moving west. And I remember the moving van pulling up to our house and saying, you're the only people in Canada that are moving east.
Wow.
Everyone was moving west at the time because it was
Right.
boom time in Calgary.
Right.
As everyone knows, Calgary is boom or bust. It was
Yes.
boom time. So we came back here, and it was the very best decision we ever made. It was nice. It was we're back home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes.
And what opportunities then lied for Suzanne, in terms of, you said your husband had the opportunity to retire.
Yes.
Did you feel like you were ready to retire, or were you looking for something else to do?
We came back. I took the summer off, and I thought, okay, this isn't for me. I need to be doing something. So I put a few resumes out. I was lucky enough to get hired with Perot Center for Women's Enterprise. And from there, that was a nonprofit. I'd never experienced anything like that. I built this whole network of new friendships, and my job was like working with family every day. It was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
However, 6 years in, and I thought, there's something more. There's something more I have to do.
Right.
Whether it's my last step in life, I'm not sure, but I know there's something more. Something was tugging at me.
Right.
Right.
And that was probably a chapter in your life where you're really thinking about, is this the time to start something new? And because starting a business can be risky,
Yes.
and you're at a point in life where it's like you probably could have put your feet up if you wanted to, but you're like, no, there's still something
Yeah.
that's in me that it's like,
Yes.
I can't. I got to do something.
That's right. That's
so
right.
was it hard for you to kind of make a decision as to what that next business was going to be?
Yes and no. I knew it had to be a business that that I built with heart. I knew that. I
Right.
knew that I had to make a difference in people's lives, whatever that looked like. So during my research, I came across another franchise, Nurse Next Door, and I thought, that's it, already tied in a nice bow, ready to go. So that was almost 6 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And just your past experience with franchise, that was a model that you were comfortable with, that
Yes.
you knew, that you were familiar with. And so even though the work was very, very different, the structure of the type of business was comfortable for you.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, kind of why you wanted to be start Nurse Next Door in our community, and what kind of things what does a typical day look like for you?
Well, a typical day at Nurse Next Door is never a typical day, which is, and firstly, if I could just back up for a minute, because just for anyone that's listening out there and anyone that is thinking of retirement and maybe thinking, I wish I could have or should have, or I was in my middle 50s when I started Nurse Next Door, when most people were thinking, what are you, crazy? What are you, Suzanne, what are you doing? Really, what are you doing? You have a benefit package, a pension plan, you're walking away from all this, and then you're going to invest all this money, and you don't know,
Right.
because there's government services that will do the same thing.
Right.
So, yeah, and 3 months in, I'd made $900, and I thought they were right. And I made $900. I was driving around a pink car with big yellow daisies on it.
Right.
And I thought this was probably the most stupid thing I've ever done in my life. But then, you know what? If you have people that support you and they say, it'll come, and it did, and it started, and happy to report now that we employ over 40 people in this city.
Yeah, and going into your 6th year.
Yes.
So
yes.
yeah, you know, starting something is hard and you're going to go through all those challenges, but it's really sticking with it and really
Yes.
staying focused and not letting those moments, you know, really discourage you and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, that's what entrepreneurship is all about. You just can't let it, those really dark days when you think you haven't made any money, well, you haven't made any money, you know it will get better. I knew in my heart it was the right decision. I knew in my heart it was the right business, and I knew in my heart that the community could use it.
Right, right. Let's talk about like the community and the clients and the people that you serve, and why that's so important for you to be able to provide those services and to build those relationships and to help those, you know, families and those people who need that help.
Well, there's so many people that need the help out there, and although there's government services available, the thing is our whole system right now, because we're in an older population here in Thunder Bay, the whole system is overloaded right now.
Yes.
No fault of anyone, but we've all heard about the problems of shortages at staff at long-term care facilities, at the hospital, and so on. We just need to hire more people in those facilities.
Right.
That's what we need. We need more loving hands on deck in this
Right.
city. That's really what it comes down to.
Right. And also, too, I think there's a lot of people who would love to be in their home as long as they can be.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing is that, you know, when you have services that can help people be in their home and that level of comfort for the familiar things that are around them and all the memories that's tied to that
Absolutely.
is priceless as well.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
And it saves the government thousands of dollars if you think about it, rather than, you know, someone in the hospital waiting for long-term care. If they can be at home, thousands of dollars are saved by someone staying at home.
Right.
And it's proven that people that stay at home live longer, happier lives.
Right. And so for you, what do you feel is like the best part of your job and doing this every day? That, you know, what gets you jumping out of bed and raring to do what you do?
It's all the new relationships that I can build. It's just knowing that I have helped a family, even if it means just picking up groceries for them or picking up someone's favorite coffee on the way to visit them. It's those little things in life that are so important to me.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
that's
It's
wonderful.
making somebody happy. That's what life is all about for me.
Absolutely. Well, and you are the perfect person to be doing that.
Oh,
you are
thank
one
you.
of the kindest, most loving people I know.
Thank you,
Suzanne.
Sharla.
But
Right
we're
back at ya.
Oh, well, we're going to take another quick break, but we're going to be right back with Suzanne. Welcome back to One Woman. I'm your host, Sharla Brown, and on today's show, we've been talking with Suzanne Tighe all about her incredible life and adventures and entrepreneurships and all that kind of stuff. And I always come up with these different fun questions that I love to send to my guests beforehand that sometimes we have a chance to get to and sometimes we don't, but I would like to do a few of those. So I'd love to ask, who are your biggest role models growing up, or women who've inspired you?
I would say a number of women in my life have inspired me. My grandmother, she was widowed at a very early age with 5 children.
Wow.
And always worked full time as well. She worked at Nielsen's, a chocolate company. She worked in the cafeteria with 5 kids at home. My sister, big role model in my life and huge mentor. That woman is so strong and has overcome so much in her life and is the most hilarious woman you would ever want to meet.
Wow.
Anything that comes her way, she finds humor in it.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm curious because you're a busy lady. You know, you're running a company, 40 staff, employees.
Yes.
You never know one day from the next because things are constantly changing. You know, what are the things that keep you sane and grounded, and like what do you do in terms of managing stress, and what are your sanctuaries, so to speak?
My sanctuary is my home. So I live on Lake Superior. I know that I can go outside. I love to listen to I just like the sound of nature, the smell of nature. I just like to be outside with my dog, going for a walk, and looking at our beautiful Lake Superior. An amazing, amazing lake. To me, it's the ocean. It's like being on the ocean. It's absolutely gorgeous. And that's what keeps me sane, is to know when I land at night or get up in the morning that this is where I live. This is incredible. It really is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, absolutely. And a beautiful spot where you are, absolutely. So let's talk about your most defining moment in life, or that could be a multiple.
It's multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's multiple. I think probably the most defining was when I started Nurse Next Door.
Wow.
I thought, yeah, here I am. I'm doing it on my own, although my husband is a great supporter, but I'm running it on my own.
Right.
And I guess I kind of looked at it a couple of years in and thought, wow, we employ a lot of people in this city.
Right.
That was a defining moment in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what I love about that is that making that decision was something that happened later in life. And like you said, where people might think that, I'm supposed to be doing this or slowing down and all that kind of stuff, and realizing like, hey, life's not too short and I've got lots of living still to do, and I can take this risk, and living boldly like that. And I just think that's amazing, is that, those defining moments don't end at 55, or that those can continue and happen at any age,
That's right.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about, I'm curious as to, now you're talking about Nurse Next Door and running this on your own, and as a female entrepreneur and being a leader in your organization, managing 40 staff, all that kind of stuff. What kind of challenges that you've had as an entrepreneur, and have you felt like you had any challenges as a female leader in running your company?
That's a very good question. I think along the way, we always have big challenges. I think we've certainly come a long way as far as challenges for female entrepreneurs. I mean, at least now, if it was the 70s, I certainly couldn't have gone into a bank and without my husband signing a loan or anything like that. I think the biggest challenge right now is making sure that we keep staff happy, that we keep clients happy. And because it's a daily thing that you have to do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And some of your goals moving forward, it's, you've shown and it's proven that, you can start and do new things at any time. Do you feel like this is kind of now your path for the next however many years? Are you looking to make any changes, things that you even personally want to accomplish?
Well, I might become a flight attendant. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. No, sometimes it's full circle. That's how it works.
That's right. I would say I would love to see Nurse Next Door expand into the region, because it is certainly needed in the region as well. So I'd like to see that happen in the next few years.
Wow, that's a great goal. I love that. And I'm curious as to if you could give advice to a young woman in this world. And that's what I love about as I get older, you're just like, oh, if I could sit down with my younger me, these are the things I would have told myself. And so I'm curious as to if there's a young woman that's watching, or if you were to sit down with your younger you, what advice would you give them?
I would say, don't be in such a hurry to grow up. If I could turn around now and say that to my younger self, I would say, whoa, Nellie, slow down. Really, why was I in such a hurry to be a grown-up? And I know in my case, because when I made money, that meant freedom to me. So, but yeah, just take chances, take those risks, and don't smoke.
Don't smoke. Oh, that one's
don't do that, young girls, who's ever watching.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't get
I think that's good advice. Very good advice.
Were you a smoker at one point?
I was, yes.
Oh, yes. Hard thing to quit, and hard habit.
Yes.
And I'm curious as to if you could have coffee and a conversation with any woman in this world, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I think I would love to have had coffee with Mother Teresa.
Oh,
really?
Yes. That's, wow.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing work she did. And we, my dad used to call my sister Mother Teresa. She would bring stray kids home from school and feed them and so on. And you know, even though I kind of had a Mother Teresa in my own home, I would have liked to have met the authentic Mother Teresa.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a selfless person
Yes.
that lived a life of service, serving
Absolutely.
everyone who
Yeah.
needed it, and those that, you know, others would have just turned away. And yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Wonderful. And let's end with, what's your most adventurous thing that you feel like you've ever done?
Well, most adventurous, I think probably in the last 10 years is starting this business. That's been an adventure. Physically, I think I went into, my husband and I were in Mexico once, and I went into a cave, and we were diving in a cave, and it was pitch black, and we shone flashlights up on the ceiling, for lack of a better word, and there was a gazillion bats up there, and I thought that this is pretty adventuresome for me.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yes.
I don't know if I could
Yes.
do that. So you're a brave, brave lady. And one of the things that I've learned from you, Suzanne, and I've got this as to what your favorite quote is and why. And I know your dad had told you
Yes.
something, and something that will always stick with me, and what's really formed a lot of decisions that I've made. So maybe you could share that with our audience.
Yes, it was a long time ago, and my husband and I were trying to make a very difficult decision in our lives. And of course, my father was so wise, and I called him, "Dad, what should we do?" And he said, "Life goes by in the blink of an eye, so follow your heart."
I love
And
it.
I have,
I love it. I love
yeah,
it.
and it has served me well.
Wonderful. Well, that's wise advice for every person that's watching, that's for sure. Well, I want to thank you, Suzanne,
Thank
for being
you,
on the
Sharla.
show today and sharing your incredible life with me and with all of our viewers. And you're just an incredible human being, and I'm honored to be able to call you my friend.
Thank
So,
you.
Yes.
Same to you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much to everybody who's watching today. Be sure to watch next week with more on One Woman.